Tonight on Joy News Prime, Electoral Commission to go ahead with compilation of a new voters register for the 2020 election from June 23, starting with a pilot next week.
We've finished with the evaluation, so we are hoping that the contract will be given and we'll get them before the start of the...
But you're convinced that, you'll start the registration late June?
Exactly.
That is...
Start from, let's say, 23rd to 30th of June, we will have started.
The commissioners, meanwhile, announced there will be COVID-19 safety protocols to ensure registrants who come to the centers are not infected.
Put on record that we have been holding meetings with the national COVID team. The top, Dr. Nsiansari, Professor Adujemfi, and Dr. Boatimba. They are the top three, so we have been meeting them. We have been discussing their protocols, and I think they are clear with what is said.
MPs call for the suspension of sitting over reports the 2 legislators and 13 staff have tested positive for COVID-19 in ongoing screening.
For the House to shut down, because if 13 members of staff and 2 MPs have tested positive, that is serious, looking at the close proximity of the chamber within which we work.
Though the majority leader has denied reports some MPs have COVID-19, the minority chief whip insists the story is true.
When they have tested Wednesday and Thursday, and on Wednesday, 1 MP and 1 staff tested positive, and on Thursday, 1 MP and 12 staff tested positive.
The Speaker is meanwhile cautioning legislators against disclosing the COVID-19 status of their colleagues.
You cannot unilaterally put into the public realm that a person is positive. And we are all learning from this as decent and honorable people. And this honorable house will follow that kind of example. That is our public.
But we ask you tonight if you would want to know the COVID-19 status of your partner. Well, 1 nurse dead after 87 of them tested positive for coronavirus. The Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association wants the Ghana Health Service to provide them with adequate protective equipment. Else,
we will not sit down for our people to be infected. And because we are not soldiers, it is a soldier who swears an oath to protect the territorial integrity of a country at the expense of his life. We didn't swear any oath to protect the life of people at the expense of our life.
And in business,
National Board for Small-Scale Industries laid ground rules for acquisition of 1 billion cedi stimulus package.
Applying does not mean you will get the loans. So as much as possible, I want to engage and convince people that it would be best if we could put in the right information, so that once you put in the right information, it makes it easier for the system to pick it up.
Later in the bulletin, the family of a 14-year-old girl allegedly filed by 3 persons is saying police investigators want them to settle the matter out of court.
He lured me to his house and gave me a bottle of energy drink. When I took it, I became extremely dizzy and woke up days after, bleeding profusely from my vagina.
I'm Israel Lion, anchoring Joy News Prime live on your digital terrestrial TV because we're free to air.
And my name is Aisha Ibrahim, coming to you live from our studios in Kokomlemle on digital address GA0992539. The bulletin is also live on DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 144.
In our very first story, Minority Chief Whip Muntaka Mubarak has described as a lie Parliament's denial the 2 MPs have tested positive for COVID-19. The Speaker last week directed all members of Parliament and staff and all other persons who work from the legislature to submit to ongoing screening for coronavirus being conducted on-site. Majority Leader Oseche Mensah Bonsu at a news conference in Parliament Tuesday said that media reported 2 parliamentarians and 13 staff have been confirmed as positive is untrue. Mr. Muntaka told Daniel Dadzi on Prime Morning on Joy Prime Wednesday the news conference to deny the report was unfortunate, arguing that it could fuel the stigma that against COVID-19 patients that the Ghana Health Service is trying to combat. There's more in the following report.
It started with a rumor that 2 members of parliament have tested positive for COVID-19. Then the statement from the Director of Public Affairs of Parliament, Kate Addo.
I want to tell all of us that the tests were done and the results were going to be or are going to be confidential. The protocol is that if you are testing, if you test positive, you will receive a phone call from the National Response Team, and the team will inform you of your status, and then you follow the necessary arrangements for quarantining and then for access to medication. We haven't received any information that any member of parliament or any staff has got any such call. As we sit now, this is very uncomfortable for us, and it has created a lot of panic among us because we all know what one person being infected with the disease in an environment like this means.
The Majority Leader, Osechi Mensah Bonsu, also stated that Parliament is unaware of any staff testing positive for COVID-19.
Nobody knows whether anybody has tested positive. The people who would know would be perhaps those of them who did the test. So just to emphasize the point that what that medium has done really amounts to nothing but speculation. They are only speculating that 2 members have tested positive. We would want to let you know that there's no truth in that.
But the Minority Chief with Muntaka Mubarak insists 2 MPs and 13 staff have tested positive for COVID-19.
What happened in Parliament and what you've heard that was being said is the fact. But when you go out and you know that what happened is a fact, and you I don't know what the intention was, and you lie to the people that pay us, you are doing 3 things. You are endangering the life of the rest of the MPs. You are endangering the life of the rest of the staff. You are endangering the life of the general Ghanaian population. When they have tested Wednesday and Thursday, and on Wednesday, 1 MP and 1 staff tested positive. And on Thursday, 1 MP and 12 staff tested positive.
Muntaka Mubarak explained the infected MPs and staff have so far been isolated while contact tracing has commenced.
They have to isolate these persons.
Has that been done?
Yes. So far as I'm concerned, yes, that has been done. And they are now continuing with the contact tracing.
Parliament is yet to issue a response to the claims by the minority, but the critical question is, does the public have the right to know the status of their MPs?
In a related development, some MPs are calling for the closure of Parliament following reports that 2 legislators and 13 staff have tested positive for COVID-19. They say keeping the House in session, especially when there is no urgent business, is unduly endangering the lives of MPs and their constituents. Parliament's Director of Public Affairs, Kate Addo, says leadership will soon take a decision on the matter. Meanwhile, the Speaker of Parliament, Professor Michael Quay, has warned MPs against disclosing the COVID-19 status of their colleagues. Joseph Opoku Gakpo has more.
Well, to quote the Director of Public Affairs here in Parliament, there is some form of panic that's set in following disclosures that there's been about 15 reported cases of COVID-19 right here in Parliament. And it's gotten to the extent that for a number of members of Parliament, well, the House has no business continuing its sitting. They think that there's no urgent business that has to be dealt with, and that it's about time that the Speaker suspended sitting here in the House for at least 2 weeks in order to allow for the adequate contact tracing and also for all individuals here in the premises to self-isolate as one of the measures to contain COVID-19. Kwame Agboja is one of the MPs who is really pushing for this.
It's terrible, 15 people in this environment. You know, we all go through the same, yes, in the same corridor.
25.
And it's not going to be easy. People touching the walls. I haven't seen anybody cleaning handrails regularly in this house. I haven't seen anybody cleaning door knobs or anything. So yourselves included, you are at risk. You may take the necessary protocols as much as possible. To close down Parliament, the government made us aware that we must do a sacrificial job for the nation because some decisions have to be taken even in the era of COVID. So I'll leave that decision to leadership and the government.
On the floor of Parliament, there were bits and pieces of the conversation around whether Parliament should actually be putting out the details on those who've actually tested positive. The MP for North Tongue, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, put an interesting word to it all. He thinks it's worrying the way Parliament has handled its communication following the testing that was done in the House.
Mr. Speaker, we need to emphasize that contracting the novel coronavirus is not a death sentence. We must show leadership. And I must say that I have not been happy at all over the last 24 hours with the way we have managed the information from Parliament's testing.
Speaker of Parliament, Professor Michael Quay, had some comments on this. He says international protocols require some form of secrecy when it comes to communication on those who've tested positive or otherwise with regards to COVID-19. And so Parliament as an institution will stick to those international standards in terms of how it conveys information around COVID-19.
You cannot unilaterally put in the public realm that a person is positive. It is only for an individual to voluntarily put this in the public realm. And we are all learning from this as decent and honorable people. And this honorable house will follow that kind of example. That is our public duty.
Another member of Parliament who is really pushing for a closure of the House is actually Ras Mubarak, who is the Kumbungu MP. He is also not convinced that it's very much of a safe environment to stay in following the disclosures on the cases that have been recorded.
For the House to shut down, because if 13 members of staff and 2 MPs have tested positive, that is serious, looking at the close proximity of the chamber within which we work, and that also underscores the urgent need for everyone, every other MP and staff who works in Parliament to avail themselves for the necessary tests to be done.
Director of Public Affairs here in Parliament, Kate Addo, has been commenting on these demands. She says it's an issue that leadership of the House will look at in the hours ahead on whether the House should be closed or otherwise.
It's important that whatever can be done to make sure that everybody is safe should be done. And I must say that the Speaker of Parliament is the first person who from day one has insisted on taking the utmost protocol, care necessary to ensure that we all are safe, that nobody infects their neighbor. So I don't think that if closing down Parliament becomes necessary, anybody will oppose that.
2 more days of testing when it comes to COVID-19 is expected here in Parliament in the days ahead. Tomorrow, Thursday, the team will be here to take samples, and as well on Friday. So far, 690 people have actually been tested, and we gather that hundreds more are expected to take the test in the days ahead. We wait to see what the response will be and what the results will possibly be. From Parliament House in Accra, my name is Joseph Opoku-Gakpo.
Right, Dr. Michael Owusu, a virologist with KCCR, joins us via Zoom with his thoughts on calls for the suspension of parliamentary proceedings. Thank you very much, Dr. Owusu. But later on, we're asking you who are watching the bulletin right now if you would want to know the COVID-19 status of your MP. And that's a question I'd also like to put to you, Dr. Michael Owusu. I mean, you certainly have an MP, and so you would have a say on that. But let's start with a conversation that's ongoing in Parliament right now about calls for the suspension of parliamentary proceedings. What do you say, or what's your view on it? Should Parliament be suspended for the meantime?
Yeah, good evening, Israel, and good evening to all your viewers. I agree that it is very important that Parliament suspends all activities with immediate effect. This is because Parliament is an important environment or area where we have legislators that represent various constituencies, and this is people that we must all uphold and ensure that we protect and safeguard their lives as individuals. They're quite important for us in everything we do, and also understand that there are quite a number of vulnerable individuals in Parliament, people who are more than 60 years, some 70, 80 years, and I'm sure that there could be some who may have some underlying conditions which are major risk factors for the disease. Although we know that largely many people are asymptomatic, we should not always forget that we have elderly people among us. And once you have these people contract this virus, the repercussions is going to be very serious. So, and it's very good that immediately they close this to allow for efficient contact tracing. And also the 2 weeks period for me will allow for those who are incubating the virus to at least show some signs and symptoms so they can be isolated. Because many are asymptomatic, it's possible that if they operate, others will join in, and it's likely to spread. And we should not allow that our parliamentarians become heavily infected and then put those who are elderly in the serious condition. We don't have to allow that. And I think that the earlier we do this, the better for all of us.
But there could also be the argument that Parliament is doing exactly the screening that's happening right now because it wants to find out the ones who are COVID-19 positive so they could be taken out from Parliament so parliamentary business can continue.
Yeah, so the way to tackle this kind of infection is that when you have a closed environment and you identify people, if it's, I don't know how many numbers they screen, if you have 2 MPs, or you have 13 other staff contracting the virus, it tells you that if you are to expand this to the larger population, there will be more who will be positive. And then this is why when you identify 1 or 2 cases, immediately you have to close the facility and disinfect the place and do contact tracing. Because if you don't do this and you only isolate those who are positive, it is possible those who are susceptible will keep getting it. And don't forget that this virus has a reproductive number of about 2 to 3. It is highly, highly infectious. So you cannot play around with such a close environment and only say that you want to isolate. If it's an open environment, you can do this. But then in such a close environment where people move in and move out, where you have vulnerable populations, it is better to put in measures quickly, close the place, do adequate contact tracing, disinfect all the area, ensure that good measures are put in place, and then before you can reopen. And during this period, you can allow for people to use virtual mediums for communicating so they can still go about their business. I am worried that because of the number of vulnerable populations within this group, it is important we protect their life. If they were young people, I wouldn't worry. I will say that, yes, let's go on. But then because we have some elderly populations within this group, we have to ensure that we do everything we can so that we don't put their lives at risk.
Now, considering the arguments that you have raised for reasons why you're saying that we would have to suspend parliamentary proceedings, the Electoral Commission is saying that it is putting in place protocols to allow it to start registration, a mass registration exercise for the new voters register. Would you then say, by extension, that this registration exercise should also be called off? We'll be coming to the story a little later, but I just want to pick your thoughts on that.
Well, I don't think it should be called off. We have come very far. We started with a total lockdown. We have opened up markets and have allowed certain activities to go on and practice social distancing on the market. This has given us a certain picture, a view that if marketplaces are able to adhere to these social distancing measures and put on the mask and observe all the precautions, I mean, things will be fine, although we have had some challenges. So far, so good for us. So it is not out of place to put on a second layer where you can have us undergo such a vital exercise as voter registration, which is very good for us as a nation, and even to prepare us for the upcoming elections. There are about 22 African countries which are still going through this process. And then we know recently that a country like Benin even has gone through elections, but they have placed a cap on the number of people who are supposed to gather. So I have heard the conversation, and I've also heard the precautionary measures which are put in place. The fact that they are going to have a mobile health team available at every spot or registration site, the fact that they will have thermometer guns to screen those who come in, those who have high temperatures will quickly be moved and their samples will be collected and tested. The fact that nose masks will be made mandatory, the fact that Veronica buckets will be placed at vantage points, and the fact that they are going to mark areas and ensure that people are not crowded and also limit the number of people who come there. I think these are things that if we implement, it will not be different from what we are doing on the market, because it's an open area where people cannot go their exercise. Right. What I've not heard from them is the elderly population. So I think that because the elderly are most at risk, if it's possible, they should allow the elderly populations to first undergo their exercise, and then when they are done, we can add on the young population. The elderly and perhaps those who are physically challenged, we should give them some priority because they could be more vulnerable. And the others who are 18 years and above, I think that they can adhere to these precautions and go through this exercise.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Michael Owusu. But then the question I was asking you earlier, would you want to know the COVID-19 status of your MP?
I wouldn't want to know. I wouldn't want to know because I respect the ethics of the medical profession and the fact that we need to protect every patient has a right. So if I go to do HIV test, I wouldn't want somebody to display my results all over that I'm HIV. We must understand that the SARS coronavirus 2 is like any other virus that we have had over the years, like flu. The only difference is that this one could be some more pathogenic. It's not like Ebola, which can strike you dead, within a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds when you get it. And it's not chronic. It's not going to live with you for the rest of your life. Once you recover, it means you have recovered. So I don't think this is the time for us to show faces or mention names. When they voluntarily come out to declare their status, it is all fine. But for me, I don't think that is necessary. What we should focus on is ensuring that the precautionary measures are well adhered in every constituency, and to ensure that every MP implement the measures so that the populations can be protected and that we can reduce the deaths within our communities and with the whole of Ghana. All right.
Thank you very much, Dr. Michael Owusu. Dr. Michael Owusu is a virologist with KCCR. And we put this question up on Facebook. We're asking you if you want to know the COVID-19 status of your MPs. And we have a few comments that we'll be sharing a lot more with you. Kwesi Boateng says, disclosing your medical status can be compulsory. What the MPs should be fighting for is the interests of the nation. And Isaf Hussein, he says, all your battles will come to your evil people with evil minds. What exactly he means, I don't understand. But all right, so we'll be bringing you a lot more of the comments, but Aisha has more stories.
And of course, definitely, I wouldn't want to know the status of my MP as far as COVID-19 is concerned. What I want from my MP is for him to observe the protocols. In the event that he finds himself positive, he should isolate, self-isolate or quarantine to ensure he gets treatment before he comes back to mingle with others. That's all I want from my MPs. And to other stories, the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association says one of its members has died after 87 of them tested positive to coronavirus. This follows exposure of 820 of them whilst on duty, a situation the association blames on inadequate provision of personal protective equipment by their employers, the Ghana Health Service. An emotional charge secretary of the Nurses and Midwifery Association tells Joy News nurses are being gagged by health facility managers whilst pregnant and new mothers are being forced to work despite the pandemic. They're threatening to take action if these do not stop. Here's the General Secretary, David Tinkran-Chum, speaking to Gifty Andopia on The Pulse a while ago.
We know that about 820 people have been exposed to the virus, and then out of that, 87 people have tested positive. We have lost one, and 422 also tested negative and they've been discharged home. As I indicated, eight have recovered, and then 312 have been quarantined and either in self-isolation or whatever. Some of them are in facility in various parts of the country. And this is what we've been talking about all this while. Right from the beginning, we made it clear that the concentration shouldn't be only at the COVID centers. But let me add that so far, the 87 people that have been infected, 2 were from the COVID centers, or if you like, the designated treatment centers. Okay. But the rest of them are all from the periphery. And that's why we kept saying that we should provide the necessary logistics for those at the periphery who are more at risk. I can tell you that it's not like the nurses are not taking good care of themselves. In fact, the figures could have been more than this, but for the way they are trained and all that. The only thing is that they don't have the logistics at the various peripheries to be able to take good care of themselves. The PPEs are something that must have constant supply. Okay, it's not like most of them are disposable. Okay, and something that gets disposed of after single use, you must have constant supply. We have gotten information that nurses and midwives who are given or speaking out about some of these issues are being gagged. And we want to sign a note of caution to any management of any health facility who would dare gag any nurse or any midwife. Because we are not here to see to the demise of nurses and midwives. Leadership will not take kindly to it at all. They don't have access to PPEs. And then when they complain, management have the cause to, speak to them in a manner as if, they think that when you report, then you are tarnishing the reputation or the image of the hospital. Meanwhile, the life of the nurse is more important than the reputation of that hospital.
True.
All right? I have accounts where even a medical doctor was reprimanded simply because he spoke about lack of PPE. We will not sit down for our people to be infected. And because we are not soldiers. It is a soldier who swears an oath to protect the territorial integrity of a country at the expense of his life. We didn't swear any oath to protect the life of people at the expense of our life. We are prepared to fight this infection, but not at the expense of our life. That must be made clear.
Still on health, Ghana now has a total COVID-19 case count of 7,117. It follows the addition of 153 cases on Wednesday, the latest, which was updated on Wednesday. There have been 2 more deaths, taking the death toll to 34. 2,317 people have also recovered, leaving the active cases at 4,766. Here's the regional breakdown. Now, Greater Accra alone has 5,008. And the Ashanti region also has 1,085 cases. In the Western region, we have 344 cases. Central region has 337. Eastern has 108, whilst Western region, Western North has 62. Volta has 59 cases. And the Northern region has 36 cases. OT region has 26. Upper East region has 26. Upper West has 22 cases. Northeast has 2. Savannah has 1. And Bono region has 1. And still to come in this bulletin, Chamber of Commerce, the Ghana Chamber of Commerce and Industry will be saying more on the business segment shortly.
Don't mean you will get the event. So as much as possible, I want to engage and convince people that it would be best if we could put in the right information, so that once you put in the right information, it makes it easier for the system to pick it up.
There is more when we return from this break in business. Time now for business. Sandra Apenu is here with the very latest. Hi, Sandra.
Hello, Aisha. Do you know who the real devils of this nation are?
Tell me about it.
Well, Cocoa Board will be telling us who those. I'm sure if you have the powers, you send them to Afghanistan to go and play Dondo.
Take it up.
All right. So celebrating 25 years of joy. My name is Sandra Esinam Apenu. I'm here for business. I will be telling you who the real devils of this nation are. But first, the Ghana Chamber of Commerce and Industry has once again opened SMEs to various business opportunities through its second virtual conference. Over 150 business owners have been connected to the National Board for Small-Scale Industries, NBSSI, for the 1 billion cedi stimulus package. Executive Director of NBSSI, Kosi Yankee Aye, revealed all SMEs who apply will be subjected to a strict vetting. There's more in the following report.
Applying for a loan doesn't necessarily guarantee you a successful disbursement. This is what all SMEs must take notice of, as Executive Director of the National Board for Small-Scale Industries, NBSSI, Kosi Yankee, reveals over 2,000 applications for the stimulus package are being processed on a daily basis. Addressing over 150 business owners on a virtual webinar hosted by the Ghana Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Chief Director outlined some conditions for accessing the loan.
Applying does not mean you will get the loans. So as much as possible, I want to engage and convince people that it would be best if we could put in the right information, so that once you put in the right information, it makes it easier for the system to pick it up, and then we'll be able to support and assist in the right direction.
Meanwhile, President of the Chamber, Dr. Nana Appiah Dankawoso I, has hinted that plans are far advanced for governments to tap into the $3 billion syndication loan for the rescue of large-scale industries.
Government launched the 600 million Ghana cedis, which of course it was topped up by participating banks or financial institutions with 400 million Ghana cedis, and now we are talking about a total of 1 billion Ghana cedis stimulus package for SMEs. And I am also aware that the plans have been made to activate the 3 million Ghana cedis syndicated loan for the large enterprises, which is very welcoming.
The second webinar by the Chamber of Commerce and Industry was aimed at connecting businesses to regulators amid the COVID-19 pandemic.
And so, who are the real devils milking the nation? According to CEO of Cocoa Board, Joseph Boahen Edu, cocoa smugglers are not just nation wreckers, but pure devils. He made the comment after touring some cocoa farms in the Oti region, where he added goods impounded by security officials will be sold and shared between security agencies and Cocoa Board.
In that all those who are smuggling cocoa from Ghana or inputs from Ghana to whatever, you mentioned Togo, they are devils.
They are nation workers.
Not just nation workers, but they are devils. The mass spraying, the cost of the spraying, the machine, the chemicals, the labor, everything is paid by government, that's Cocoa Board. So after all this, why would you go and sell your cocoa to an Alhaji from Togo? Then the other aspect is that the fertilizer, if you go to Togo or you go to Cote d'Ivoire, the fertilizer is sold in the open markets. They don't subsidize fertilizer for farmers. The Togolese government or the Ivorian government will not subsidize, fertilizer for cocoa farmers. It is only Ghana whereby you find this. Some time back, it was even free policy. And that one, it was gone because it's even heightened smuggling. Not that we've bought a policy of subsidies, the farmer should pay part. If still our inputs are being found in Togo, then I don't know what else to do.
Oil prices remain unchanged at the country's palms. I have a discussion on that when I return with more business news after 8 p.m. Thanks so much for watching.
Thank you for staying with us on Joy News Prime. I'm Gary Al Smith with the sport. Here in Ghana, a member of the GFA Executive Committee is calling on government to support the game more. This comes in the wake of revelations from the Deputy Sports Minister here on Joy News that sports and football in particular will not be included in the government's stimulus package offerings.
If we are always going to be raising funds from our own pockets, the little we earn from our private businesses into the game, then we are in for trouble. It is time we get the support of government and corporate organizations to make sure that the game will be played the way they want, because all these corporate organizations also try to use the football stars to promote their brands as a vehicle to promote their brands. It is all over. We've seen most of the organizations trying to use football. So it is clear that they must come in to invest in the game so that the game will rise to the level that we all want, and then we will enjoy the fruits of it. So it is clear that we, the people in the game in Ghana, are really suffering because somebody is running maybe a private business like me. I have a farm. I have some working on some estates also, and also I have other private investments with some other foreign partners. The little that I've saved for myself and my family, I have to use it for the game. Our part of the world in Ghana, what we use our money to do is to pay the boys until you get a transfer fee. You get a boy who goes out there in Europe to be signed on with some good money. All the money you earn with your private business, you are supposed to use it back into the game. And you can imagine the number of people you employ, and then if all of them are paid, you are even likely to have only one or two who will be able to make it big to the level where you can earn some revenue from transfers. So it tells you directly that most of the money goes into the game without it coming back.
That's the sport for now. I'll be back on the other side of 8 for those on Joy News. If you're on Joy Prime, thank you for your time. Let's do this again tomorrow. I'm Gary L. Smith.
And it's time now for Showbiz. Becky is here with the very latest from that world. I'm much more interested in celebrity, politician, fresh boy.
So, Aisha, do you also believe that John Dumelo got married because of politics, because he's vying for,
I've heard rumors.
You have? He said that that's not the reason why he got married. He got married because it was time for him to get married. So, for those of you out there saying that he got married because of politics,
the guy is in love.
Yeah.
Why are you worrying him with politics
I don't know why.
and stuff?
You know, Ghana, we always talk. But actually, let's talk about COVID-19. Of course, we're still creating awareness, and so what AMA did today, together with some artists in Ghana, is to they did something really beautiful at Achimota. So we have to see this.
A drive to the Achimota overpass is a beautiful, breathtaking art scene. The murals are not just eye-pleasing, but depict messages to educate people about COVID-19. The colorful images painted on the walls tells the story of how the world should come together to fight the coronavirus. Meet Ian Kwache, one of the artists behind the exhibition. He shares why he settled on the colors and images.
This kind of art, we are talking about only positivity. So the first thing that comes to mind is so many vibrant colors, right? So in taking the colors, we are thinking about everything that's so vibrant, so we could use that. But secondly, we are working on collaboration with the whole world, because we know we are in this thing together.
The International Organization for Migration, IOM, in collaboration with the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, AMA, and the Okaikwe North Municipal Assembly, together with the European Union, officially outdoored the art exhibition to create awareness on the COVID-19 preventive measures.
Our walls are untidy, so let's tidy up the walls by introducing beautiful colors that will not just paint the walls, but it will serve as a dashboard also to communicate the vision of the city authority and communicate messages of importance also to us as city dwellers.
This is a project implemented by IOM with the funds of the European Union, and it is part of the actions of the EU Emergency Trust Fund for Africa. The trust fund was created now 4 years ago to help our African partners to fight against illegal migration and all the suffering that is connected to illegal migration.
Well, if you're looking for a beautiful place to take some selfies, make your way to this place. But don't forget to sanitize your hands and use your face masks.
Kadi Asamoah, Joy News.
Beautiful.
This is beautiful. Yeah, really beautiful.
Aisha, and let me tell you, tomorrow I'll be there to record something beautiful.
And I hope that the message will get to the people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But let's talk about Ratty Ghana. He's a rapper. He's hoping to be known across Africa. He says that he is working so hard to get that recognition.
Thank you so much for bringing us Showbiz.
Anytime, Aisha.
And indeed, this is your election headquarters here on Joy News Prime. The Electoral Commission says it will begin piloting the compilation of a new voters' roll next week, ahead of a mass registration exercise due the following month. The exercise comes amidst concerns the mass gathering of people could fuel the spread of coronavirus. Officials, however, say the National COVID-19 Task Force is giving its blessing for the EC to go ahead with the exercise to begin June 23, 2020, and expected to be completed in 38 days. Director of Electoral Services, Dr. Srebo Kweku, has been explaining the protocols to be followed to curb the spread of COVID-19 during the registration exercise. Kwesi Parker-Wilson has more in the following report.
Heavy security presence at the premises of the Electoral Commission during the Inter-Party Advisory Committee meeting today. Over 60 armed policemen were stationed at all entry and exit points. The meeting was to update political parties on preparations towards the compilation of a new electoral roll. At the meeting, the EC disclosed scheduled mass registration exercise will take place from late next month. Here's Director of Electoral Services at the Electoral Commission, Dr. Srebo Kweku.
We are going to start the registration last week of June and finish by the last week of ending of July. Let's start from, let's say, 23rd to 30th of June. We will have started. We are using the clustering system. So the polling stations will be grouped into groups of 5, and each 5 will be a cluster.
He also explained that there were measures put in place to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 during the registration process.
I want to put on record that we have been holding meetings with the National COVID team. The top, Dr. Nsiansari, Professor Adu Jemfi, and Dr. Boatimba. Okay. They are the top 3, so we have been meeting them. We have been discussing their protocols, and I think they are clear with what is said. So what we are doing is that for every racing center, there will be thermometer gun. So once you get there, your temperature is taken. There will be mobile health team. So if your temperature is above the maximum, then they will come and take you and maybe help you to.
So health officials will be at the registration.
Exactly. But I said it's a mobile team. So we just call them that we have a suspected case here. They'll come and pick you and handle that. So if you are clear by the temperature, then you go to the center, you do use the Veronica bucket to wash your hands. Once you finish washing your hands, then you move to the demarcated areas.
The largest opposition party, NDC, boycotted today's meeting. However, the governing NPP attended the meeting. General Secretary of the party, John Boadu, who represented the party, welcomed the EC's decision to compile a new register.
It is not, as for the NDC, they are only making noise. Maybe they are aware of this, and because of that, they want to just make some kind of noise in order to stop the NIA from doing mass registration. Within this period in question, it is important to note that a lot more people who are qualified to be enrolled on the NIA roll have not yet been done. Those who have been done have not yet been issued their cards. Within the period, NIA, if considering our situation, should be able to issue their cards to them and also go ahead to do mass registration, not mop-up.
And also in the bulletin, there's trouble brewing in the Nshaiso constituency branch of the governing NPP, where some polling station executives are protesting what they say is an attempt to compel one of the contenders in the parliamentary race to step down. One of the factions is being accused of masterminding the plot to force out Chief Executive of the Micro and Small Loan Center, Chief Executive Stephen Amwa, in favor of the incumbent. Supporters of the Maslok CU however say the incumbent MP Kennedy Kankam-Boadu has lost favour with the constituents and could hurt the MPP's electoral fortunes in the constituency if he is chosen to represent the party in the 2020 election. Nana Senso-Mensah has more in this report.
They blame constituency chairman George Kofi Adjei, who is in bed with incumbent Kennedy Kankam, for engineering what they describe as the unopposed agenda. The agitated executive say Mr. Kankam's popularity has waned, sparking fears of dropping electoral fortunes for the party in the constituency. They spoke to Live News.
Mr. Stephen Amoah is being asked by certain bigwigs within the party to step aside for Honorable Kennedy Kankam to go unopposed. And we feel that it is being unfair, first and foremost to the delegates, to the constituents, and also to Mr. Stephen Amoah. And we are doing everything possible to ensure that the proper democratic processes are followed as far as parliamentary processes, parliamentary elections are concerned. So far, the party has put in place all the processes. They've gone, picked their forms, filled, submitted, paid their monies, gone through vetting, and just waiting for the voting to take place. Only for us to hear these rumors being peddled around. Now, we feel that these issues going on cannot be taken for granted because the chairman of the constituency is on record as saying that he has admonished Mr. Stephen Amoah to step aside as far back as 2017. He has misconducted himself around this election by openly campaigning for one candidate, and his message has always been that Mr. Stephen Amoah should step aside.
The opposing faction, however, insists it has nothing to do with any moves to have Mr. Amoah step down. Members say information making the rounds about alleged presidential pressure in the matter has not come to their attention, for which they want clarification.
We are petitioning the president. We are petitioning the president today. We are pleading with him to enforce democracy within Ishayasu constituency. That is what we are doing today, and we believe our beloved president, whom we have worked for all this while. The most unfortunate thing is that the chairman, Mr. Joker, and Honorable Kennedy Kankam do not have the history and the record to back their respect for the president.
In case your plea is not granted, what are you going to do?
When we get to that bridge, we'll cross it, but we continue to plead. Because we are under pressure from the larger number of delegates and the constituents to ensure that this simple democratic process goes on.
Nana Senso-Mensah reporting.
Leader Osechi Mensah-Bonsu is calling for a review of ex-gratia payments to members of parliament, proposing a pension scheme for MPs instead. Many current and former MPs, including Mr. Mensah-Bonsu, have been pushing for the payment of an estimated 29 million cedis in ex-gratia arrears dating back to 2005 they say is due them. The demand has sparked public outrage, but the majority leader insists they are entitled to the money. In a yet-to-be-aired interview on PM Express on the Joy News channel later tonight at 9 p.m., Mr. Mensah-Bonsu reveals how many of his colleague former MPs have become paupers and have resorted to begging for handouts from sitting MPs to survive.
That President Mills had no authority to have established that committee in the first place to review that committee's report. And he had no business saying that, well, I can only pay 70%.
You got 70%, isn't that enough?
You are salaried, aren't you?
Yes.
So if you are giving 70% of your salary, that would be okay, because it's near 100%.
Well, because it's coming from a private man's pocket. I'll demand my fair share 100%. Absolutely.
You have to have some conversation. The point is, if the state is saying that we don't have the wherewithal, you have to engage. Some of them, in fact, many of them, I shouldn't say many of them, most of them, They leave Parliament, especially the non-professionals. Even with the professionals, you are a lawyer, you've come to Parliament for 12 years. You've lost all your clients.
What's your recommendation? Something that it's there that you can access when you...
My recommendation, which is what we were, proposing to the Chire Hesse Committee, was that we should have a pension scheme for members of Parliament.
The full interview is tonight on PM Express right here on the Joy News channel from 9 p.m. That's right after the bulletin. We'll also be live on the Joy News Facebook and YouTube platforms as well as myjoyonline.com. Aisha.
Certainly have to stay for this interview. It's a mind-blowing one. Now, a 14-year-old girl has allegedly been defiled by 3 people, but her family says police investigators want them to settle the matter out of court. The victim, whose name has been withheld, says she was sexually assaulted for 3 days before being released to go home. Joy News' Henry Kwesi-Bedu and Inafali Akwansa have more in the following report.
On the evening of May 19, 2020, 14-year-old Abba, not her real name, was sent out on an errand by her mother. Abba only came home 3 days later, bleeding profusely from her vagina. Abba says she had been defiled by 3 young men during those days. The Class 6 pupil was allegedly lured by the 3 men who gave her an energy drink laced with a substance that made her dizzy.
One of the perpetrators is a friend. He lured me to his house and gave me a bottle of energy drink. When I took it, I became extremely dizzy and woke up days after, bleeding profusely from my vagina. I didn't see or feel anything at all.
After returning home, Abba spent 4 days at the hospital. The Ahanta West police arrested the perpetrators. They have since been released, with the police insisting the case be settled out of court, the family claims. Abba's father, Richard Kwaku, disagrees.
My daughter was raped by 3 young men. After we reported the incident to the police, the boys were arrested as my daughter was also admitted for 5 days at a health facility in the community. I was later told the young men have been released and the police are insisting we do an out-of-court settlement. But this, I disagree.
Mr. Kwaku wants the suspects prosecuted.
This was on my blind side. We want the law to take its full course. I suspect the families of the perpetrators have given the police some money.
The 14-year-old victim, who was discharged from hospital, is currently responding to treatment at home.
The case has since Friday been handed over to the Western Regional Directorate of the Domestic Violence and Victim Support Unit. We're joined via phone by coordinator of the department, Frank Nana Asumening, for more. Good evening to you, sir. We hear your outfit is waiting for the birth certificate of the victim before perpetrators are charged. How far are you with the investigations?
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, the investigations actually is on course. We are still making efforts to get medical ascertainment so that we can proceed to the courts. Age in determining defilement cases is very crucial. So there are instances where we may produce a case in court without medical certificate, and we are likely to lose these cases. So we are doing every effort. So by tomorrow or the next day, to send the victim to the hospital for the death authorities to examine her and give us a report on her age so that we can proceed to the court. The case is ongoing.
Has there been any difficulty in attaining the birth certificate of this young lady so it can help to determine whether it's a defilement case?
Yes, there is difficulty because the parents are saying they don't have neither birth certificate, baptism certificate, nor even weighing card. So it's now a burden for us to send the victim to the hospital, and this goes with a cost. And the parents, we don't know how prepared they are for us to go to the hospital tomorrow to pay for medical expenses for us to get the age ascertainment of the victim. However, we are making every possible effort to do that tomorrow so we can proceed.
We're hearing of allegations that the police investigators want the family to settle the matter out of court. What have you gathered on these allegations?
For this allegation, I am not sure because I am the head of the unit. I am discussing every issues with the parties involved, and I have never passed such a comment to them to have issue settled in home. And I don't believe my investigator has also told them they should go home to settle this case without recourse to me. Because all along, whilst the case has been going on, I am in it. I know the in and out of the case. Whatever goes on, I am the final person to give any instructions or order on the case, which I don't support that allegation that the investigator has given them the chance to go and settle matters at home. Like I have said, investigations goes with procedures and steps. The case was reported just last Friday. As at yesterday, the investigator has gone to the scene to ascertain all evidence that we need. The next step is to get this medical form, and then we process our documents.
So when are you expected to conclude this investigation?
Like I'm saying, tomorrow, if we should go to the hospital, and God willing, we should get the age ascertainment report, we will proceed to the court immediately.
I'm grateful for your time. Nana Sumening is coordinator of DOFSU in the Western region, and the police in the Ashanti region are holding 3 suspects for attempting to trade in babies. The 3 are said to have confessed to the crime. Asafo Bibi, one of Kumasi's biggest slums, well noted for the city's booming commercial sex trade, is also said to have become notorious for the baby trade. Nanaya Ojima has more in the following report.
For prostitutes, business gone wrong is getting pregnant in line of service. Besides having to go off for a period, fending for the baby in the small shacks they live is hell. This girl I choose to call Abna gave birth through prostitution. You having to manage in a small, poorly lit shack for which she pays 10 cedis as daily rent. At least one commercial sex worker is serving a jail term for selling her baby. A colleague in the commercial sex business explains.
And I'm ready to for say bit CB my Bamacan young girl flow back now to me about for 5 million.
This woman I choose to call Adoma claims to be a nurse at a hospital in Obuasi, but checks at the hospital proves otherwise. According to her, she has been married for 10 years without a child and has been under pressure from her husband and his family to give them one. Adome's only solace to save her marriage is to go hunting for a child in the slum.
I'm saying inside say be manage baby are separating to him say me to work as inside na say nti o ma to ba na twene 1 week there and them so mo de me kwa sha woni bi kwa o sisi ano ka chere say no kore this time you do no sisi ano ka chere say no kore nti e me hwenti 4,000 obeje oni ne kwa kan am say so 40 million pe no mo to me to mo ba twene 1 week it was then buy am sister akro we dem mpe 6 months baby dem me fa na nya hwe nti me mpe sister nini.
2 others had accompanied Adoma to the slum in search of a child. This is how they corroborated her story.
Krantuchi again, Naganda Konabacher, no. I couldn't win Untimate engine unco. Yes, he had done one, but a cinema free, a bit so you.
That's a no crescent Kamoka Toba.
But an criminal, but to be a director or say, Sebi, Predator, I show for no war. Or more to Kranatokane, that money.
One woman I called Juan through a friend got wind of the search for a baby and offered her child for sale. She tells me she feigned interest and agreed to use her baby as a trap to expose the baby buying syndicate in the slum. An arrangement was made with the vigilante group for arrest of the prospective child buyers.
And I'm na wucha 9 years ni tunam kaze say akonya bia beda wo say dey yes yi omo yes ade ne to edi
nti wo sheda ko nyese wo koton wo ba
there be I me fla
okay
the 3 were subsequently arrested together with members of the vigilante group. Police says the group had withdrawn an unspecified amount of money from Adome's mobile money account after seizing her phone. Police have since taken statements from all parties and granted them bail. Under the Anti-Human Trafficking Act 2005, human trafficking means the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, trading, or receipt of persons within and across national borders by the use of threats, force, or other forms of coercion, abduction, transfer, deception, and abuse of power or exploitation of vulnerability. Successful investigation and prosecution of the 3 who intended to buy the child and also the relative of the child who attempted to put him up for sale will serve a jail term of 5 years. That's according to the act. From Kumase for Joy News, Nana Yaujima reporting.
Let's still stick in the Ashanti region because grief and shock gripped residents of Apinkra in the Bosom district of the Ashanti region, where a 70-year-old man bludgeoned his nephew to death in his sleep. Kofi Asamoah told police he killed his 41-year-old nephew Yawusu because he's been pestering him. Yawusu's lifeless body was discovered on Tuesday in a pool of blood a day after a scuffle ensued between him and his uncle. Lava FM's Erastus Asari Donko visited the town and has come through with this report.
This is a crime scene. This whole area is a crime scene. To one of the bizarre killings you can find, one of the bizarre killings that this town, Apinkra, has ever known. The man in question, who is the suspect, is an uncle to the deceased. And according to eyewitnesses, they had a disagreement the following day, that's yesterday. And the gentleman came to sleep here in the courtyard. In his sleep, the uncle hacked him with a metal bar, which the deceased used to work. And he did that consistently, hacking him continuously right here until part of the skull, the teeth, and other parts of the face started falling off. After the act, he went to report to the unit committee, and it was the assembly member who sent him to the police and brought in the police to pick up the body. Let's speak with him. What's your name, sir?
I'm Honorable Frank Dankwa, Apinkra Electoral Area Assembly Member. There was misunderstanding between them in the evening. So the disease hit the suspect with a stone, and some people took him to the clinic and they addressed it for him. So I think after he came, it's a form of retaliation that is resulted to this.
But what did he tell you?
Actually, he told me that he didn't know what happened. He came out and he met the body lying there. That is what he said initially. So I said, fine, you are the only family member here. So let's go to the police and make the complaint to the police.
So afterwards, what did he tell them? I learned he admitted in front of them. So what exactly did he say?
We came together with the CID. And when we came, in fact, when we went there, I told them that he's the crime suspect. So she should at least. So when we were coming, he was in handcuff. So when we came, we entered through the suspect's room. And you could see that there's a blood all over the place, even on his body. So when we came in, the CID asked him what happened. He said he didn't know. So CID began to bobbing up. It's like he's getting furious. So when the man sees the action of the CID, he said, he did it. And he said, what did he use to hit him? He said, one of the tools that the guy used, the guy is a electric welder. So he did with metals. So it's one of the metals that he hit him with.
The frail-looking old man still had blood stains on his finger and toenails. Investigators also saw blood in his soul as the entire community is stunned by the incident.
The man Asamoah is living does not show something that he can do that, because his living was very good. He has never has any contact, any conflict with anybody here. But only thing I can say is that for particular this today incident, I'm surprised, and even it's surprised to all of the residents people here at Accra.
The Jachi police are preparing him for court on a provisional charge of murder.
Today, many of the residents here at Apinkra did not go to farm. The reason is simple. They were shocked to the bone to realize that Openya Asamoah, who is the Abusuapanyin for a part of this community, could kill his nephew, not just killing him, but hack him to death many times until half of his head has fallen off. It is something they have not witnessed before. Reporting for Joy News, Erastus Asaredonko, Apinkra, Bosomtwe District of Ashanti.
Welcome back to business. Prices of petroleum products should have witnessed some significant increase from the middle of this month. Diesel and petrol should have gone up by more than 5%. But why have the over 100 oil marketing firms held prices unchanged at a time that margins are dwindling? George Yafe has more in the following report.
Oil business understands that the reason why the expected adjustment did not happen was due to Gold's decision not to review its prices. This is because most of the players in the industry were all waiting for the expected increases to be done by the market leader before they also follow. However, persons close to Gold had argued that they didn't think that the current price dynamics warrant an increase, hence their decision to hold on to prices. Some of the other oil marketing firms have told Joy Business that increasing prices at the pumps at that time would not be wise if GOIL is not moving. Some of the oil marketing firms have argued that the move by the market leader is hurting the operations, especially when it is obvious that prices should be going up at the pumps. But a source close to GOIL have also indicated that they could be reviewing prices at the beginning of next month. It is not clear for now what will be their direction. Some industry players have argued that even though this could be benefiting consumers now, in the long term, it would not be good for the industry. Under the current price deregulation policy, prices are expected to be reviewed at the pumps every 2 weeks, depending on developments on the world market in terms of price of finished products, cost of transportation, inflation, and how the Ghana cedi is faring against the US dollar.
Duncan Amoah is Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC, and he joins me via Zoom. Grateful as always for joining me tonight. Our prices on the international market are still low. Today traded around $35 a barrel. What do you make of the decision by the OMCs to maintain current prices at the pump?
Let me say good evening to you, good evening to viewers. Indeed, prices are not low any longer. At the outset of Corona, we were seeing a downward trajectory as far as global pricing. I'm talking of finished products is concerned. Only reason we currently still selling lower at the Ghanaian pumps is largely due to the market leaders' intervention not to increase prices. And so if you talk to a lot of the market players, you get the understanding that they indeed are hurting. But for us as consumers, GOIL indeed has been a game changer. We couldn't have wished for anything better. And this is exactly what we wanted to see with deregulation, and we are seeing it currently. But in truth, prices have indeed gone up for finished products on the international market. So we cannot go out there expecting any reductions at this point. Even for prices to stay as they have, I do think that is largely due to the magnanimity of the various oil marketing companies. A week from now, it is quite certain that a lot of them would have adjusted prices upwards. The first window, June, should commence somewhere Sunday, Monday. I do have a feeling that latest Monday evening, almost all other OMCs would have gone up between 3 and about 6-7%. So all we can say to consumers, take advantage of probably between now and the weekend and fill your tanks, because prices are not heading south anymore. They are going up.
Duncan, I think that is very debatable, because some have argued that at a point where crude prices actually went down, selling somewhere around below $1, we still paid more for it at the pumps in Ghana. So why is it that now it's just around $35 a barrel? Why should they maintain prices and say that, okay, because it's going up now, we can reduce prices at the pump?
Okay, so there's a correlation between crude prices and the finished product, your petrol, diesel. However, there's a different market altogether for petrol, diesel, what you will call the platform, where the benchmarks do apply. The cost of finished products, like I indicated, also moved. I mean, it came down to the 90s. Now it's gone all the way up to somewhere 400. And so just look at the jump. And then again, your cedi, which is the local currency, is also not doing as relatively good as it used to some 1 month ago. It's lost ground by a few points over the, and they really would have headed upwards by post intervention. That is why we have said that we are grateful to GOIL, we are grateful to all other oil marketing companies, but we need to be quite frank with ourselves, frank with the market. It can no longer be justified that they sustain these currently low prices that we've seen. But the only other caution we will throw to the oil marketing companies, just like you said, when it was dropping on the world market, the reductions we saw were staggered. They were piecemeal. You saw 2%, you saw 1%, you saw 3%, you saw sometimes 4%, 5%. We would not want to wake up first day June when prices are supposed to be reviewed, and then we are review upward. If we wake up 1st of June and it's gone up by 2-3%, I'm sure we'd all be happy. 10% will be a big slap. We wouldn't want to see those big numbers.
Grateful for your time, Duncan Amoah. As always, we move on now to do some other stories. An implementation of the Continental Free Trade Agreement will begin on July 1 as planned, according to Foreign Affairs Minister Shirley Ayorkor Botchwey. Although the coronavirus pandemic is having a toll on economies of member states, African leaders are discussing ways for smooth takeoff. Reacting to this development, Secretary General of the International Chamber of Commerce, Emmanuel Doni Kwame, says takeoff will be a hurdle.
I understand the recommendation of the AFCFTA Secretariat to the AU Assembly of Heads of State was that as a result of the pandemic, there's the need for some technical work to be done, and then we need to save lives, and we also need to save livelihoods. So for any meaningful trade to be undertaken, there's the need for the date to be rescheduled. And that's the date for trading. And I think the recommended date was 1st January 2021. But this is an ongoing process. Negotiations are still ongoing. And then since negotiations can also be done virtually, the only challenge is they need to do that with in 4 different languages and different time zones, and it also comes with its own challenges. Yeah, technical work it's not that easy. It involves a lot of negotiations, as I mentioned earlier, and I understand some negotiations have not concluded yet, and previously they might have to travel to meet. Now they have to do these things virtually.
We have international commodity news up next, and looks like crude oil is beginning to smile softly. It sold today about $35 a barrel. Thanks so much for joining me tonight on Business. My name is Sandra Esinam Apenu. Let's do the same time tomorrow, but you can get more news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. Please do stay home, stay safe, and stay beautiful.
Second hour of the sport here. I'm Gary Alsmith. Thank you for your time again. I was telling you about the project restart in the Premier League and how they are looking to start the contact training now. It's interesting, and it's time for me to give you an idea of the story so far, if you've not been following or know how they got to this point. So, as we know, they have not had any matches in the Premier League since March, when the COVID-19 pandemic shuts down world sport. And a third round of testing took place on Monday and yesterday, but the results are not yet back. So these are 2 of the main points that you should note. Also, 1,744 tests on players and staff for COVID-19 have produced 8 positives so far, including a player from Watford and then another staff from Bournemouth. Clubs last week began a first phase of Project Restart, we told you that, and they agreed to a return to training in small groups with the proviso that there will be limited contact. Now, a failure to resume the season could cost the Premier League around £750 million. That's about $1.38 billion in lost revenue from broadcasters, and that's according to the British media. And today, like I told you earlier, the Premier League statement says that squads are now able to train as a group and engage in tackling while minimizing any unnecessary close contact. In Ghana, there's a lot of talk about what should happen should football restart. Now, Robert Coleman, who is the boss at Wembley Pitches, says that banks should venture more into the building of facilities to generate revenue, because in the end, they benefit as well.
Government is the biggest spender, and therefore I will urge the Ministry of Youth and Sports to look at replicating this edifice in most constituencies. Then also you talk about corporate bodies. You have corporate bodies like FAML, GMPC, you have Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, you have Minerals Commission. A lot of these bodies can also come in. Then the GFA must also be in constant touch with FIFA to see how we'll be able to bring juvenile football. Look at the phenomenal work that has been done by Magdan in Labadi and in East Legon. As I speak to you now, he's also trying to put another edifice in Baleshi in the Ayawaso West constituency, then also in Teshin. So I believe strongly that if corporate bodies come together, they will be able to pool resources, then they will be able to deliver such pitches. If you go to the advanced countries, that is what is done. Then they try to name the various stands after the companies that contributed funds to do it. And Nat, let me also say that it is high time that just as we have Agriculture Development Bank, we have National Investment Bank that they move into infrastructure and all that. It's high time we get a bank that has the focus in trying to develop football or sporting activities. And I believe that if you do this edifice in other communities, people will rent it out for parties, weddings. They will also come and then contribute money, and then they will play football, especially if you have a gym, if you have a basketball and all that, because this project will certainly pay for itself. So I believe that it's high time that we have a bank that has the passion, that focus, yes, to develop football. And I believe if we are able to get such an agenda, certainly we'll be able to replicate these pitches in almost all constituencies in the country.
And that's the sport for today. Thank you for your time. We have more on myjoyonline.com, on Twitter, and also on our Instagram pages. I'm Gary Al Smith.
All right, it's time for Joy News Interactive, and we're looking at this story on the Joy News page where North Tongue MP Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa is pushing for lawmakers to make their COVID-19 status public. He's been writing on Facebook. Now, let's get to see some of the comments that you have posted. We have 865 reactions, 193 comments, and 26 shares. Let's take some of them. Webu says, it's a nice suggestion to make their status public. Even in the other parts of some of these high profiles were published. Even some Ghanaians living abroad, after they recover, they would be ambassadors. George says, consider how some Ghanaians are stigmatizing the recovered people. I don't think it is prudent to disclose the identity of those positive MPs. My opinion, as always. Of course, that's your opinion. Fatal says, why shouldn't the public know? Are MPs more valuable than Boris Johnson, Prince Charles, and Queen Elizabeth? These prominent world figures even made their status public, and there have been a number of replies to that. I'd like to share the replies with you. AJ says it has nothing to do with superiority. It's a matter of individual choice. Shaibu says this is where you guys are getting it wrong. No one made Boris Johnson test public but himself. A person's medical condition is always confidential until he or she decides to make it public. Bismarck says it is their own choice to declare it to the general public. It's confidential. Ajua says they're not in Ghana. Any health issues, there are laws governing it. The MPs that tested positive can sue anyone who will make their identity known. Likewise, all other patients with COVID-19. Right, let's move on to some others. Ali says, every patient deserves confidentiality of status, and MPs are not exception to this. We are fighting stigmatization in this country against COVID-19, and I can tell you the status of an MP is known. It can affect his or her position as an MP in the upcoming elections. Oh, really? That's interesting. Demdea says, there is nothing wrong with the public knowing the status of the MPs. Attitude like this makes a section of the general public stigmatize those infected. That's a point that's being made by quite a number of people. And then Emilia says, I don't understand why they should keep it as a secret. Why were the people at the fishing company and the railways workers made public? They are not better human than the general public. If some members of parliament have tested positive for COVID-19, it is right to inform the general public. We don't need the names of the MPs, but just the numbers that are positive. In fact, they are putting the general public, especially the media, at risk. They should stop their mind games. Aisha, I'm sure you have a few more comments there.
Yes, of course, a lot more comments, but I'd like us to watch this video of the pop bearers who've been following their conversation, and for them by Kwata. But let's check out where this video found itself, and right there on Donald Trump's page. You know, Donald Trump never fails. He never disappoints.
Well, it's a long way until November. We got more questions. You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
one to be campaign message. And that'll be it for the bulletin tonight. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Many thanks for watching. I've been doing it with...
I'm Israel Lai, and thank you very much for watching. You have a good night. We have PM Express coming up next. In that interview, Evans Mensah had with Oseche Mensah Bonsu, the majority leader.
Have a good night.
Good night.